attention to what please pay attention to what Professor will be saying today. And the recording will be made after today's session and posted on the website. Professor, thank you very much for your time. And then please feel free to take over.
Okay, thank you for having me here. As Dr. Farouk said, my name is Atsu Amegashie. I'm a professor at the University of Guelph. I've been here since 2002. I left Legon. I graduated from Legon in 1991. And then 1993, I went to the London School of Economics. And I came to Canada in 1994 to Queen's University and did my PhD at Simon Fraser University, graduated in 2002, the same place that Dr. Farouk also got his PhD this year. So I'm gonna start sharing a screen. So Dr. Farouk, he says only the host can share a screen.
Oh, okay. Let me see whether I can give you the permission to. Yeah, all panelists. Yeah, I think you can go ahead now.
I can go ahead now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so screen, let's see. I have to go to my, you see some songs in there. Let's see. Where is this document? Yeah. Okay. Do you see the screen now?
Yes, please. It's on.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about postgraduate economics in Canada and beyond. This was a talk I gave in July to MPhil students at KNUST, but I've modified it a little bit. So the target was originally to MPhil students, but BA students will also benefit. Okay, so the first thing is in Canada, we have a ranking of universities, which is the case in every country, right? Just as UCC might think they're better than Legon, or Legon might think they're better than UCC, it happens here too. So when you're looking at Canadian schools, I try to think in terms of tiers. So you can think about tier 1. And in that tier, I have not ranked the schools in any particular order. They're just in that tier. So tier 1 will be Queen's University, Toronto, Western Ontario, Simon Fraser, McGill, and UBC. These are the top schools in English Canada. As you know, Canada is French and English. In French Canada, a school like University of Montreal is very, very good. It's extremely good. So they attract students from Ivory Coast. They attract Francophone students, some of the top Francophone students. Okay, and some of them are now they're not doing very well. Okay, tier 2 will be McMaster, York, Guelph, Alberta, Calgary, Concordia, Carleton. Tier 3, I'll put Dalhousie, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Waterloo may not agree, or Victoria, Ottawa, and Ryerson. So all these schools have both master's and PhD programs. There are other schools that are good that I'm putting in tier 3, but they don't have PhD programs. They only have MA programs. So those will be Lethbridge, Brock, Regina, Winnipeg, New Brunswick, Memorial University, Prince Edward Island, and Trent. I may have missed a few, but this is the general, when applying to schools, these are kind of the general ranking you see. In tier 1, these days, people are agreeing in Canada that Toronto and UBC are the best, even among that tier, right? So it's tougher to get into those two places. Okay. Now, what Dr. Farouk asked me to talk about was, what do admissions committee look for? Well, as you can guess, they look for a high cumulative grade point average, GPA. So if you have a first class, you have a second class upper, that helps a lot. Dr. Farouk said something the last time I joined, where he said that maybe you have a 3.5 GPA, which is a second lower, but it's a very strong second lower. And he was advising that if you write your proposal, you should say something about why that's a very good GPA. Now, within that GPA, we want to see good grades in microeconomics, macroeconomics, and to some extent econometrics. Okay, so if you have an A in public finance or monetary economics, but you have a C in microeconomics, is a bad sign. So we care more about the core courses, how you're doing the core courses, than how you did in the elective courses. Of course, then you have all overall average training, overall marks matter. And this is a very important point. We want to see strong training in mathematics and or statistics. This is very, very important. So even some US schools, they don't even care about whether they did economics or not. They feel that when you come in, they can train you. But they want people who have like a bachelor's in mathematics, physics, engineering. And later I'll give you examples. And there's a school in Canada here, Western Ontario, which is in tier 1. That school now just sometimes admits people with who have no economics background. But in general, Canadian schools require economics background. They require a bachelor's in economics. But Western Ontario is now changing. If you have physics or mathematics, they will admit you. So math is very, very important. So I'll put some testimonies about what people experience from Ghana or Africa when they come to Canada or US. Okay, now there's a basic trade-off here. As you can imagine, it is harder to get admission into the top tier schools than to get admission to the lower tier schools. So for example, it is harder to get admission to Queens than it is to get into Manitoba, okay? Now, one thing I want to point out is that all these schools are good schools. The fact that a school is in tier 3 doesn't mean that it's a bad school. It's just that they are rankings, right? So they are, you can have, in soccer, you can have teams that are both good, but some teams are better than others. So it's the same thing here. So when I say a school is in tier 3, I'm not trying to put that school down. It's still a good school, but a tier 1 schools have more reputation. Okay, so to get into a top tier school is tougher than to get into a lower tier school. But when you get admitted into a top tier school, you are more likely to get funding, financial support, and a more generous financial support than when you get into a lower tier schools, because the top tier schools have more money, right? That's one reason why they are top tier. They have more money for research, more money they have alumni, past students who give them a lot of money. So the top tier schools have more money. Okay, now one thing you have to be worried about is what is the issue of the foreign student fee differential. So in a province like Ontario, so Canada has 10 provinces, like regions, and Ontario is one of them. So in Ontario, you have Guelph, you have McMaster, you have York, Toronto, Ryerson, Carleton, and all those schools are in Ontario. Now, foreign students pay more in school fees than domestic students, that is Canadians or permanent residents of Canada. So a foreign student might pay $12,000 more in school fees than a domestic student. So for example, at Guelph, when we fund MA students, it's enough for a Canadian student. The money we give them is enough for a Canadian student, but it's not enough for a foreign student. Okay, so it's cheaper for universities to support a domestic student than a foreign student. Okay, so that's why sometimes, so for us to give funding, full funding to a foreign student, you must be extremely good, because if we can get a domestic student, why are we going to give you 12,000 more? We can just add a little bit to the 12,000 and fund another domestic student. So that is the budget implication here. And this foreign student differential is not only in Ontario, it's also in Alberta, BC, but I think there are some provinces that have smaller student fee differential. When I went to Simon Fraser in 1998 to do my PhD, I think I was paying just the same fee as a local student. I don't know whether that has changed. Dr. Farouk may have more to say about that. Okay, so why would a university support foreign students? Why would the Canadian university? Well, there's competition for students. So the best Canadian students, they go to the top tier schools. So the lower tier schools then may get Canadians who are not that good. So they may prefer a foreign student to a local student. Okay, so that's one reason, right? And also, they want to give their programs exposure. The universities want to be known outside Canada. So if you attract more foreign students, you get known. Okay, so that's what happens. And one thing is that what's here? One thing is that when foreign students go to a place and they do well, then the school wants to admit more students from that country. So like Dr. Farouk and some people from Legon or KUST or UCC go to SFU and do well, then they say, oh, good, Ghanaian students are good, so we're going to admit more Ghanaian students. Okay, so that's what sometimes in this program, you see more Chinese students. Well, there are a lot of them, but they also, when they come, they do well. So like Dr. Farouk has done well at SFU. He was one of their best students there. And so if somebody applies from SFU, Legon or Ghana, they're going to look at the applications well. If there's a period where some students came from Ghana and didn't do well, it looks bad. And then they don't want to admit a lot of Ghanaian students. So, for example, in the 1990s, there were about 15 Ghanaian students, MA students at Simon Fraser at the time. There were about 15 of them. Okay. Okay. I'll skip this. Top schools in the UK. All right. So let me give you also. So these are some Ghanaian students, PhDs who go from Canadian universities, like John Karkari was at Queen's in 1985. Victoria Kwakwa at the World Bank was at Queen's in 1988. She did economics and statistics. Granville Alsong in 1988. Daniel Kanda, who was a TA with me at Legon. He finished Legon in 1988. He's now a senior economist at the IMF. He finished Queen's in 1988. My good friend, Edward Kuchwati, he did economics and mathematics. He graduated in 89, did his PhD at Queen's in 1990, finished in 1998. Let's see. Now, Simon Fraser. You see the list, we have Daniel Simons. He's probably the first person to get a PhD from Simon Fraser in 1988. You have Joe Atamensa, who got a PhD in 1992. He went to the Bank of Canada and now he's at the United Nations Commission for Africa. He just did a bachelor's in mathematics in 1984, but went to New Brunswick to do a master's in economics. Then you have Vice President Mahamudu Baumia, who did his PhD in 1995. Samuel Laye, 1987. Alex Apia, 1999. He got his bachelor's from University of Cape Coast. Myself, Atsu Amegashie, I finished in 2002. And then Sister Professor Eugenia Ampofu, who now is at KNUST, she was my mate. She finished in 2004. And then it took 17 years for Dr. Farouk or Abdul-Salam to come. So Sister Professor Eugenia Ampofu in 2004 was the last person in 2004 to get the PhD from SFU till Dr. Farouk came and got it in 2001. So 17 years passed. So sometimes, of course, during this period, many master students were admitted, but some of them didn't proceed to the PhD. Okay, and then okay, I'll skip some of this. McGill. So Toronto, to the best of my knowledge, only 2 Ghanaians have obtained PhDs from there. The last one was Stephen Ahiankpo in 2007. And then McMaster, we have 2 people there, Nikwakusowa and Yawasanti. So these guys are in their 70s now. Dr. Yawasanti is still at Legon. He's been in Legon since the 1980s. Okay, and then at Guelph, you have Benjamin Amoa, who got his from here in 1998. He just retired from the Bank of Ghana. He was head of financial stability department at the Bank of Ghana. And then 2001, we got Henrietta Ajay Isiama. Okay, so now one thing I want to say is that in general, the people who tend to do well, the people who tend to come into a master's, do well, and able to go to the PhD, there are students who tend to have a bachelor's in economics and mathematics or economics and statistics from Legon or USCC or wherever. Okay, so again, if you are trying to come here, try to, if you can go to the math department and audit a math course. If you are not the math, if you didn't take math, maybe you did economics, geography, economics, political science, or you're somebody who's not that strong in math, like your grade in elective math wasn't that great. Try to improve your math, okay? I'll say more about that. Okay. Now, if you have an MPhil or MA, should you apply straight into a PhD program? That's a bad idea. You will not get admitted. It's very likely you will not get admitted. Okay, so let me give you some examples. Even there are people from top schools who come here and they do the masters again. It's just 1 year. So if you do it again, it helps. Okay, so Edward Kuchwati, he did his masters in Cambridge. He finished in 1991. He came to Queen's and did another master's, a second master's, although he was coming with an MPhil from Cambridge. Daniel Kanda, who was at the IMF, he did a master's at Warwick, but he came to Queen's again to do another master's. Ebenezer Asem, he did a master's again also as Warwick, the same program that Daniel Kanda did. He also came to Ebenezer Asem, I'm wrong. He didn't do his master's at Queen's. He went to Alberta. So from Warwick, he did another master's at University of Alberta before going to do a PhD. And then my mate at Simon Fraser, Vasil Golovetsky, he had an MA from Ukraine, but when he came to SFU, he was admitted into the MA program. The only disadvantage sometimes that when you already have an MA from wherever, and you want to do an MA again, some schools try to give preference to somebody who doesn't have an MA at all. Like if somebody has a bachelor's without an MA, they probably want to give preference to them. So the graduate school has to be convinced that why does this person have an MA and they're doing an MA again? But they don't know how tough economics is. So they think that the people should just be allowed in. So I'll give you more examples. Okay, now, so there are exceptions. So Manitoba is the only university I know in Canada that has admitted people straight into the MA program, into their PhD program with an MPhil from Ghana. So one guy who's currently in their program is called Francis Zikpi. So he was admitted straight to the PhD. He is a lecturer at KNUST. Years ago, there was a guy called Sesi Akwena. He taught me at Legon. He has a bachelor's in chemical engineering and an MPhil from Legon and went straight into the PhD program at Manitoba. Same thing with Dr. Kwabia Boateng, who is dead now. He also went straight into a PhD program in Dalhousie. But one thing I want to say is that these two people, Dr. Kwena and Kwabia Boateng, they came with their own funding. The university, Dalhousie and Manitoba didn't fund them. They had money already. So maybe that's why they took the risk, Manitoba and Dalhousie took the risk of admitting them straight into the PhD. But generally, this is not done. Okay. Okay, now, why is it that if you have an MA or a PhD or an MPhil, a second master's in Canada is better? Is because when you come into the master's straight away in Canada, you come in September, by June or July, you have to write what is called the qualifying exam in microeconomics and macroeconomics. At Guelph, the exam lasts 4 hours. At Stanford, the qualifying exam for each micro and macro lasts 6 hours. You write from 9 to 12 p.m. You write from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. Then you take 1 hour break. And then you come back and you write from 1 to 4 p.m., 6 hours. That's what the exam takes. Micro alone, macro alone, 6 hours, because it's a tough exam. So the failure rate is high. And if you fail twice, you are kicked out of the program. So I'll tell you, so like at Guelph in 2010, we kicked out 4 students out of the program. In fall 2013, we kicked out 5 students out of 13 students. And in the first attempt, 8 students failed. And then they rewrote it, and then eventually 5 students failed twice and they kicked out. In June 2021, we kicked out 5 out of 6 students. The only student who passed was a student who had failed his comms at Johns Hopkins University in the USA, a very good university. So, when you come, you have to be prepared about how tough things can be. Okay, now here are some testimonies. How prepared should you be? This is somebody who got a first class at KUST, did a master's in Manitoba, but is in Alberta, and he finds it tough. So he tells me, the PhD program at the University of Alberta is tough, ! 3. I literally have no breathing space, and I've contemplated quitting on several occasions, but I'm still giving it my best shot. Okay, one thing I've advised the KUST group is that unlike UCC and Legon, at KUST, you can't do economics, mathematics, or economic statistics. So when you're on the Faculty of Social Science at KUST, you can only do social science subjects in addition to economics. I think that they should change that. So this is a lady who got the first class from Legon in August 2000, some years ago, and then went to the UK to do another master's and did a master's at Manitoba. I was in Ghana and she said she wanted to do a PhD, and I told her, no, please take your time, do a master's again. And so when she got into the master's program at Manitoba, this is what she told me. Prof, thank you so much for advice during my application procedure. I am now in Manitoba. We jumped straight into math review course and writing test after test. You were definitely right about doing an MA first because the courses move really fast. This is definitely different from the MSc in the UK. I would have had a hard time even if I made the cut straight into a PhD. So thanks too much. Thanks so much. I'm still finding the pace quite intense since I haven't done math in so many years. So one thing I want to say that the people who struggle, usually it's the math. Their mathematical training is not strong, okay? We had 2 students who failed comprehensive exams at Guelph this year, and we had to kick them out. They are both from Ghana. And their math was weak. They don't know how to even manipulate probability density function. If you give them a probability density function to work with, they don't know how to work with the probability density function because they don't have good grounding in statistics. Okay. So now the lady who said the Manitoba program was tough for her because she couldn't keep up. She finally got the master's, right? I mean, she got a first class from Legon and a master's from UK, but she didn't make it into the PhD program. So she struggled. She got a master's, but she didn't do well enough to get into PhD. So this is what she sent. Manitoba has definitely said no to admission to PhD. According to the grad chair, they admit only if the person has straight A's in the theory courses, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now, this is a guy who got first class from Legon and came to do a master's in Brock University, the university that I'm putting tier 3. He says, as you have read, I managed to enter Brock last year and I've completed the coursework and currently on co-op term. On my experience, it's been a lot. First was the environment, resources, class size, and easily approachable faculty members, which far away that of Legon. We shouldn't be putting Legon down though. It was a bigger transition, I must admit. You did extreme hard work and an extra mile in studies. Our preparation in Legon is inadequate. My only slight advantage came as I pursued economics and statistics with 2-year background in mathematics and 1 year in computer science. All these are isolated courses and are not integrated in economics. It means at Legon. The coursework was very much intense, stressful, and a big stretch. However, I think I went through well. I'll be looking at the next step after Brock. So this is Brock University, and it was finding it tough. So when he says that the preparation at Legon is inadequate, we have to put that in context. The lecturers at Legon, they do well. they are good. So they train us well. I went to the same system. Dr. Farouk went to the same system. So we have to be grateful for going to that system. But the point is that the mathematical and statistical training is not at the level as it is here in Canada or UK or US. So the math has to be stronger. So the math that you do, for example, if you're doing courses in economics here, you have to you work with probability, conditional probabilities. You work with Bayes theorem. If you're doing signaling and all those steps, you are computing what is called perfect Bayesian Nash equilibrium. You have to know how to compute a conditional probability. You work with Bayes. I learned Bayes theorem, and I learned this very well, how to prove it and everything, in the statistics department at Legon. I didn't learn it in the economics department at Legon. So it was the statistics department that gave me that strong foundation. So the stats we do at Legon, economics, mathematics, is good, but you need you need to be trained at a higher level. Okay, so try to take a statistics course, a math course book, and try to teach yourself. Go and audit math courses if you really want to do well. Okay. Okay, no, I've said this already. So like I said, but of course, there are Africans and non-Africans who got their PhD from Guelph and other Canadian universities, right? And there are people who did maybe only economics and geography, or economics and political science, but they also got PhDs, right? But those people, if they did, they must have some talent in mathematics. They must have some innate ability to be able to quickly understand mathematical concepts and ideas. Okay. Okay. This is a Ghanaian that we admitted to a PhD program, and Professor Rene Kierkegaard, he's the head of the graduate admissions at Guelph. He asked me for my opinion that, look, is this a good student? And this was what I told him. I said, I see that Aaron has an MSc in financial and actuarial mathematics from Ames, Ghana. Ames, Ghana is African Institute for Mathematical Sciences. His math background will be certainly stronger than the math of the average PhD student in our program. I see that he has an MA in financial economics from Bowling Green University in the USA. Then I said, some of these MA programs in the USA are glorified BA programs. They use undergraduate textbook. I will explain that later. But I checked the MA financial program that Aaron did. I noticed that they use variance graduate text for microeconomic theory taught by one Rachel Schaffer, who got her PhD in economics in 2016 from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign under the supervision of Nkucho and Montiperi. Okay, so these are the things we look for. The reason why I said that is that in Nkucho, there's something in signaling game theory called Cho-Krebs intuitive criterion. The guy is Nkucho and Montiperi, they are theorists. So if we see that these are the people teaching you, or the people who taught you were taught by these guys, then we think you were trained well. So I was putting that in there to convince Rene that Aaron is a good student. So then I said, I also checked the macro and econometrics courses. If he did well in Schaeffer's microeconomic theory course, then that plus the training at Ames, Ghana, give me cause to say that we should admit him. So he was admitted, but he's deferred it. He might come next year. Okay, now this is a student, a Nigerian lady who has a BA in 2001 from Covent University and an MSc in economics from Warwick University in 2013. I tried to convince Rene to admit him, but it didn't happen. So this is Rene texting me. Sorry for taking so long to reply. I'm not sure about this one. You and I understand the UK marking system, but not everyone on the committee does. The bigger issue is that fall 2022, that is the year she wanted to come in, is 9 years after she finished Warwick. She's going to be rusty. So if you're applying years after you finished, we get worried. But if her first degree was in mathematics, for example, we wouldn't have been worried because we think that she can do it. But here we feel she's rusty because, and her grades in math econ at Warwick was like 65%. We would think that is low. Okay, now, Still, so the point I'm making is that math is important. And these are the things we look for admission. So let me give you an example now. There is a PhD program, MSc PhD program in quantitative economics at the University of Alicante in Spain. And what Alicante has been doing is that each year they go to KNUST Economics and recruit the top 3 MPhil students into their PhD program in Alicante. The Alicante PhD program is like the PhD program in the US. You do 2 years of coursework. And so the 2 years of coursework is equivalent to first year master's in Canada plus first year PhD. Okay, that's what it is. So you do courses in mathematical economics, statistics, microeconomics, and econometrics. And then when you do well, you are admitted into the PhD. Otherwise, you go with an MSc. Now, this is somebody, I'm not going to mention or disclose this person's name, but this person got a first class from KUST. He did MPhil at KUST. He took 8 courses. He got all A's. He got A's in everything. But when he went to Alicante, he could only do the master's. His grades were not good enough for him to go into the PhD. And it's because this person's math background was weak. I have discussion with him. Now, let me give you an example of another group that went to the same program at KUST, from KUST, and they did well. Okay, so Abraham Latte. You see, Abraham Latte did agricultural science at KUST. It's a science course program. So his technical training is better than the average, let's say, economic student in Ghana. He did MSc economics at KUST. At KUST, MSc economics is below MPhil economics at KUST. But he did so well, he was able to go into the PhD program than the guy who did MPhil in KUST, got all A's, and the MPhil is higher than the MSc. But because Latte has a good technical background, he's able to go into the PhD. The same thing with Esther Aqua. Esther Aqua also did the MSc at KUST, which is again below the MPhil. But Esther Aqua has a bachelor's in mathematics from KUST. He's also in the PhD program. But John Ejri, he doesn't have a math background, but also, so it's not that everybody who doesn't have a math background can do well. You can still do well. And then Hadi Ahmed, he also doesn't have a math background, but they all got first class. But I asked him, he got an A1 in elective maths in SSS. So that's a good signal that he has a math aptitude. So if he has the opportunity, he can do well. Okay, now talking about the importance of math. You see, these are some professors in economics. Look at their math background. Paul Campra, he has a BA in engineering at Oxford from Cambridge, and he was the best student in his engineering class before he did a PhD. Avinash Dixit, who's a professor at Princeton, got a first class in mathematics from Cambridge University, first class in mathematics and physics from Bombay University in India before he did his PhD in economics. So I'm just telling you, these are the people who are pushing the field, so you also have to be up there. Marcus Mobius, who's at Harvard, I think he's left Harvard now, has had a BA mathematics first class from Oxford University before he did MPhil economics at Oxford and PhD MIT. Ilyana Kuziemko, she has a BA in mathematics first class from Oxford with highest honors before she went to do a PhD in economics at Harvard. Akim Wambach, this one is even more interesting. He has a PhD in physics from the University of Oxford. Okay, PhD in physics from the University of Oxford, and then PhD in economics from University of Munich, Master's in economics from London School of Economics. And then finally, so there are so many people like this here. Those are people so when you're taking courses with them, they can really stretch you. So you have to be on top of your game. Bruce Greenwald is a professor of economics at Columbia. He has a bachelor's in electrical engineering from MIT, master's in electrical engineering from Princeton, and then PhD in economics from MIT. Okay, I think I should start wrapping up. So, okay, fine. So one thing is that should you go to the USA? Okay, so one thing I want to tell you is that in the USA, you can go straight from bachelor's to PhD. The reason is that in the USA PhD program, you're giving master's training, but they don't call it a master's. So when you see somebody who has a master's from the US, they are usually from low schools in the US. The top schools in the US don't have a terminal master's program. Like Yale University says, the Master of Philosophy degree is awarded to students in the PhD program upon completion of all the requirements for advancement to candidacy for a doctorate in economics. So they give you the master's when you pass your qualifying exam in the PhD program. But it's not that they tell you to do a master's. So let me give you an example. This guy, this is Yao Nyako, a very top economist. He's Ghanaian. He did his bachelor's in economics in 1982, got a PhD, a master's in economics from Cornell in 1985, and a PhD in 1986. So between the master's and the PhD, it was only 1 year. Well, of course, he didn't do his PhD for 1 year. He was already in the program. When he passed his qualifying exam, they gave him the master's. And then he did the rest of his thesis and got a PhD, okay? So, okay, this is a guy, Auguste Dente, who's an assistant professor of economics at Tulane. He got a first class economics and statistics at the University of Ghana. Now he went to MA Economics, University of Akron. Now the MA Economics at the University of Akron in the US is not equivalent to the MA in Canada or UK or Ghana. They use undergraduate textbooks. But he went straight to a school in the US, so the transition was okay because when he gets to the PhD in the US, he'll still be trained in the master's level stuff. So when you have a master's in economics in the UK, note that it is not equivalent to a master's in economics. So if you're applying, it's better to apply for a master's again. So the schools that offer terminal MA in the US, that is the schools that admit you purposely for a master's, they are like South Dakota, Central Michigan, University of Akron. These schools are lower ranked schools. You won't see this in Cornell or Harvard or Michigan or no, they don't do that. They admit you straight in the PhD. I should be done. Okay, so these are the two students who came to Guelph, PhD students, and they failed the comps twice. These are the students who I said were weak in math. You see, one got her MA from Central Michigan University. They both got first class. The other got an MA from Ohio University. Now, these MAs they were not strong MAs. So that's why when they got in the PhD program here, they struggled. If the chair of the graduate committee had contacted me before making this decision, I'd have told him that, no, don't admit them to PhD. They should do the master's again. So a master's in economics from the US is not equivalent to a master's in economics from your standard master. The rigor is low. They use undergraduate textbooks. Okay, I'm just going to skip this. Some people who recently got their PhDs here. I'm going to skip this. Okay, so let me just conclude with something like, how to be a successful economist? Now, well, it is not. I can't give you a magical tip, but you have to be inquisitive. Okay, you don't do chew and pour and all that stuff, and you don't see that. When I was learning economics in Ghana, I thought Milton Friedman was dead or Paul Samuelson was dead. When I came here, I saw that all these guys were alive, and when you go to conferences, you met them. So don't think that you can't contribute to knowledge. You have to be inquisitive. You have to challenge ideas. You have to ask yourself why. Okay, when I was at Queens some years ago, there was a guy who was doing mining engineering, and he was asked to critique an article. And he came to us, and he was so shaking. He said in Pidgin, how I go fit a critique article? Professor write article, how I go fit critique him? And we said, no, here it's not that you can't critique it. So he critiqued it. So, and also try to write. You see, cultivate the habit of writing. So let me give you an example. Professor Ernest Ayiti, most of you know him as a good economist in Ghana. He became vice chancellor of the University of Ghana. But what most people don't know is that Professor Ayiti has only a bachelor's in economics. He doesn't have a master's in economics. He doesn't have a PhD in economics. His master's is in regional planning from KNUST. And his PhD is in planning from Dortmund University in Germany. But because Professor Aite writes, he reads, he tries to teach himself new stuff. He's known to do so well that he's a legitimate economist and he's respected as an economist. Okay, so don't stop learning, have a curious mind, attend seminars, read more, and above all, learn as much mathematics and statistics as possible. You can never go wrong. If you go to maths and statistics, it will help you. But of course, you have to be able to apply the math. That's the difference between economics and mathematics. So there are people who have PhD in mathematics. If they come into economics, they can't do well because they don't have ideas. You have to have you must be an ideas person. So I think this has been helpful. Dr. Farouk, thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk. And I look forward to questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor. We are again most grateful for your time. If you do have any question, please make sure you raise your hand. I will surely pick it up and send it to Prof. And you probably might want to use the mic as well. Before any questions come in, I do have a quick question for Prof. Prof, I realize that some of the applicants do have background in either engineering or mathematics, to mention but a few, which is math oriented. Do you advise coming in to do the MA in Econ, because they occasionally have issues finding supervisors to continue with their primary field of interest?
You mean somebody with a bachelor's in engineering who wants to come and do a master's in economics in Canada?
Yeah, because he or she wasn't able to find a supervisor to pursue his primary field, which is engineering.
The problem, as I've told you, is that I don't think any Canadian university does that. The universities that do that are, Canada will require you to have a bachelor's in economics. So the university you can apply to should apply to Western Ontario. They might admit that they are the only university that I know admit straight into PhD, into masters without any background in economics. Otherwise, you would have to go and take maybe third year macro econometrics at least.
Okay.
Yeah, because without a background in economics, most Canadian schools don't do that. So it's the US schools, it's the top US schools who do that. You can have a bachelor's in physics, like the examples I gave, and they will admit you straight into their PhD program or master's program. But in Canada, I don't know of any school that does that except the University of Western Ontario. And for them, even for them, it's a recent thing that they're doing.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Thank you very much, Prof. I do have a question here from one accountant, one student with an accounting background. So the person goes like, I have a degree in accounting. Can I do masters in economics? Do you advise that, Prof?
No. He won't be able to breathe. He will just the first 2 weeks he will think he's in hell. No, he can't, because well, he doesn't have micro, macro, and if he has a bachelor's in accounting, his math background is not strong. His math and statistics background is not strong, so he won't be able to do it. Unless but he won't be admitted, right? They won't admit him. Yeah, unless he has some innate math ability, but they will still not admit him because it's accounting. Right? It's not even finance. Even in finance, they might not admit him, but accounting, the math in accounting is not it's not the level that we require in economics, so it won't work.
Prof,
he should rather continue in accounting if he wants to.
Okay. Prof, I have a question about those doing statistics and actuarial science. Is it a bit closer to econ, or you think it has the same stream as mathematics?
You mean actuarial science?
Yeah, so we have students with pure actuarial science background and pure statistics background. Do they have the same admission, stringent admission requirements in the Canadian schools if they want to transition into economics?
Yeah. If you have a bachelor in statistics again, then you have to try University of Western Ontario. I don't know any Canadian school that will admit you straight into a master's program without any background in economics. Okay. I don't know everything. Actuarial science is closer. Right. So you see that the guy that I wanted to admit, but even that Aryan guy that I said went to Ames, he did master's in actuarial science at Ames. And I think his bachelor's was in mathematics or something like that at UCC. But he has a background in economics. He did financial economics at Bowling Green University in the US. Okay, so once you don't have a background in economics, Canadian schools don't really, as far as I know, they don't, except Western Ontario that are now.
Prof, I have a question.
If you're going to, okay, so if you're going to try, if you have good grades in statistics or mathematics or physics or engineering, and you are going to try to just want to do economics, then your best bet is the schools that I've put in tier 1. I don't know of any case that they did that, but probably they might. But the only school I know in tier 1 that does that is University of Western Ontario. Okay. The other schools require a background in economics.
Okay. Prof, I have a question here from one student. It goes like, how would you know if you are a fit for a straight PhD, or you will have to do master's first before continuing with your PhD? That was the first one. The second one has to do with the bachelor's in finance. The person goes like, I have bachelor's in finance first class. Can I apply for master's in financial economics?
Okay. The first one says, how do you know whether you can go straight to the PhD?
Yeah.
What was the first one?
It's whether you can go straight into the PhD or you have to transition through the master's first.
You have to go to
yeah.
You mean from bachelor's?
I think the person already has an MA and she would like to pursue the PhD, but she wants to know what are the best signals to probably.
No. Like I said, Manitoba is the only school that I've seen that have admitted people from Ghana straight into their PhD with MPhil.
Okay.
But it is not, you won't get in because we feel that if you come in straight September, you have in 7 months or 8 months in June, you're writing the qualifying exam, it'll be too much. And as I've told you, there are people who came in even from schools in UK, other places that we've kicked out, right? During my talk, I gave examples. There was another Nigerian student from University of Birmingham who had an MA from the University of Birmingham. He came here, couldn't survive. He was kicked out. Another Ghanaian lady, first class from Legon, master's from Sweden. She was also kicked out. They failed the conference exam twice. So it's a risky thing. It's just better to do the MA again and get used to the Canadian system.
Okay. Prof, we have a question here. I have bachelor's in finance.
The second one is about finance, right?
Yes, please.
Okay, so quickly, financial economics, yeah, you can get in. If you have a degree in finance and financial economics, you can get in. One thing I want to say is that there are different types of finance programs. Okay, so again, that's why I said the math is important. You can do finance in a program where all that you are doing is that you are using formulas, like you're using the capital asset pricing model, CAPM. You're using formulas. In another finance program, you prove the capital asset pricing model. Okay, so depending on the kind of the rigor is different depending on where you do your finance program, but you can get in.
Prof, I have a question here. It might not be related to economics, but maybe you might want to give it a shot. It said, I am a master's degree in international development. I want to pursue PhD rural planning at Gulf. Can Prof advise me on that?
Yeah. I think that funding, yeah, people have done that, but that program, I don't know. I think funding is a problem, but here, the person's background is fit for that program. If master development economics, admission will be straightforward. What I don't know is funding. I don't know how good their funding is. There was a Ghanaian lady who was doing a PhD there, and some professor was funding her but then the funds run out. So I don't know what their funding is, but in terms of admission, he or she is a very good fit for the, yeah.
Okay. Prof, I have a question here. I'm a graduate from NAST or University with BA Economics Geography. Considering what Prof said about math background, a math background can do self-studies and write in my statement of purpose to give me an edge. So I think basically what he's saying is, even though he has economics and geography, can he indicate in his statement of interest that he's probably teaching himself some, the requisite math requirements needed for the program?
Okay, the point is that you still get, you can still get in, right? If you have a bachelor's in economics, geography, economics, political science, or whatever, you can still be admitted. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying that there's a bias towards those who have maths and statistics. Like Simon Fraser has that bias, right? So there's a bias towards those, but it doesn't mean that you won't get in. So you can get in, and it depends on the schools that you apply to, right? I mean, there are the tier 1 schools are tougher to get in than the tier 3 or tier 2 schools, as you would imagine. Now, saying that you've taught yourself math, no, that was not going to cut it, because it's not credible. Anybody can say that they taught themselves math. And one thing that I want to say that Dr. Farouk Samuel Beswa, how you pronounce his last name? He is now the MA PhD program at SFU.
Yeah.
But he didn't do econs maths or econs statistics. But he was one of the good students down at SFU PhD.
Yeah.
So when I came to SFU, I spoke to him. And he said that what happened was that when I was in 3rd year, he went to the University of Sussex in the UK on an exchange program for like 3 months. And then they told him that you have to know math. So whilst there, he took courses in real analysis, functional analysis, and calculus. And then when he came back, he went to the maths department at Legon and he audited courses in calculus and statistics. So that's when he realized that you really need to start in the math. So you can also audit courses. So I don't know whether Samuel, when I was applying, also used that he had audited his courses. But to say you are self-taught, it may not be credible. You can, if you did well in SSS math, you can indicate the subjects that you did, the topics that you covered in SSS math, integration, other stuff, and maybe indicate how much what you got, that you were a good student. That helps. But again, let me make it clear. It is not the case that if you didn't do math, you can't get in. So let me give you an example. Vice President Bawumia didn't do econs, maths, or statistics, but he came to do a PhD here. The governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, he did not do econs mathematics or econs stats, but he came to do a PhD at McGill. So there are so many examples of people like that. One of the advisors to Vice President Bawumia, Professor Joa Makuto, he also did not do economics mathematics, but he came. And then Sister Eugenia Ampofu, who came to SFU, she did her bachelor's in Canada and her MA in Canada. So maybe that was an advantage for her, but she also didn't do economics mathematics. But the point is, you have to make sure you know math and statistics very well. Otherwise, you struggle.
Okay. Prof, we have a question from one student, basically saying, I have accounting background. Is it possible for me to transition to masters in finance? Accounting to finance, masters in finance.
Yeah, I don't know what the finance people look for, but again, if I'm on a finance committee and if finance is more technical than accounting.
Okay.
So again, that's what people will be worried about. They'll be worried about, can you do it? If you're paying sometimes you're paying your own school fees, then they don't worry too much. They can admit you. But if they have to give you money, then they are more careful. So the point is that people have different aptitudes towards mathematics. So there's somebody who didn't do any math in university, but they are naturally gifted in math. So maybe they did accounting, but if they find themselves in a math intensive program, they can do well. So yeah, so people have done that. They can admit you. No. Right, but also you have to know that finance in general has a tougher background than the math requirement than accounting, and economics has a higher math background than finance in general.
Okay. Prof, this one is from one student, basically saying, I studied micro and macroeconomics as part of the BSc Business Administration with finance major. Will MSc Economics work for her?
First, the micro and macro she did in the BSc Administration is not equivalent to fourth year macro in economics. It's not equivalent to advanced micro. So the micro that somebody would do in business administration is equivalent to intermediate microeconomics.
Okay.
Right, like second year microeconomics. But you know, it depends on natural ability and how smart the person is. If the person math background is good, yeah, they can do it. If they are good in statistics, good in mathematics, because when they come into the economics program, econometrics, they have to be dealing with stuff like likelihood function, what a likelihood function is, probability density functions and stuff. So cumulative distribution functions. So they have to know how to work with those things. Yeah. So yeah, there's no harm in trying. They can apply, but they have to just make sure that they're well trained to handle the technical aspect.
Okay. Prof, I have this question from one student with statistics background, basically saying that, is there any Canadian school that you can recommend with masters in statistics with specialization in econ?
Specialization, what does the person mean that there's no, so they mean they want to get into masters in economics?
Yeah, I think basically, I think maybe
again, those people, I'll advise them to apply to the University of Western Ontario.
Oh, okay.
But they have to be careful. Their program is very tough.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, their program is very tough. So, but if they are good in math, because University of Ontario is just admitting people who have no background in economics. Okay. Not all their students don't have the background in economics. Some do, but if you don't have a background in economics, they will admit you. Okay. But if you have like a first class in maths or a first class in statistics, I think the average, like Guelph will not admit a student like that because we think you don't have any economics. But I think the top schools might. I don't know what they are doing. But it's Western Ontario that I'm certain they now admit students with that kind of background. Otherwise, apply to the US. The US, they apply to the good schools in the US. They admit students like that, but they may require GRE.
Okay. Okay. Prof, I have a question here from one of the students. I think this might be a bit of a stretch, but maybe you might want to give it a try as well. He said, I have a first class in BSc Finance. Can I offer a program in master data science? I was a science student in SSS. I had A in physics, and I did very well in the elective maths as well. I don't know about the data science part.
Yeah, I don't know what data science people look for, but the bachelor's is in what field?
Finance, BSc Finance.
Yeah, I don't know. So what the person can do is just straightforward, go to the website of the schools and see the requirements.
Okay.
Right, yeah. Right. Like for example, this question that people are asking. If you go to the website of Guelph, you go to the website of Queens, SFU, they tell you the requirements for their master's program. They tell you that you must have this average, and you must have you must have taken these courses, micro, macro, and stuff. So you would know.
Yeah, Prof. I think this one has to do with Concordia. It says, Prof, please, what is your take on Concordia University in terms of acceptance and level of competition?
Well, Concordia is a very good university. I'll rank Concordia at the same level as Guelph.
Okay.
And they have a Ghanaian professor there called Daniel Ochre, but he's old. He's probably retired. I met him. Maybe 15 years ago at the conference, but he's there. So Concordia is a good school. But I don't know what their funding requirements are, but it's in a good school. And of course, in Quebec, it's in the French province, but they teach in English.
Wow. Yeah, I think some of them are asking for your contact. So let me quickly share Professor's webpage. So I'm going to share the, so when you go to
you can get my contact, yeah.
Okay, you can go to my my website. I try placing it there. So when you go to my website, where is it? I think it should be somewhere here. Basically, the sessions that we've been having so far, we have 3 sessions here. The first one was the one we had last Sunday. Yesterday, we had one as well. So you go here. This is Professor Amegashie. Basically, just click on it. It will take you straight to Professor's webpage, which is at the University of Gulf. So if you happen to have any question, please email Professor. This will be Professor's email. So
okay, and let me say something too. So at Guelph, we don't give full funding to MA students. Our full funding is for PhD students. For the MA students, the funding we give is adequate for Canadian students. But because of a foreign student differential, if you're a foreign student, you would have to pay, you have to find like 12,000 more from the resources. So that's tough. Oh, yeah. Right? And I just said the York University recently gave full funding to a Ghanaian guy for PhD, I think. Yeah, one white guy called Josephat Owusu or something. He got a full funding. Yeah, but that's another thing with the Guelph MA. It's cheaper for us to fund domestic students. So yeah, but like Dr. Farag, you know, SFU, I think they give good funding though.
Yeah, they are very generous. They are very generous, extremely. Yeah. Yeah, I think we scheduled for an hour. We are almost just about time. I think I do have a few questions. I'll just have to probably send it to Professor later for Professor to answer. And again, the video we posted here on the website, please feel free to access the video probably by the close of today. And then if you do have any questions, please let me know. I'll probably shortlist those in the Con and business section. Send it to Professor for some few advice. He might have an advice for each and every one of you. Not so many of you due to the limited space, but I think hopefully it can be of help as well. And again, Professor, we are most grateful for your time and then all the advice that you gave us. Truly appreciate it, Prof.
Thank you too. Thank you very much. I enjoyed this interaction.
Thank you very much, Prof. Okay. Bye, everyone. See you guys soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.